discuss a renewed, inclusive, and hopeful ECOWAS. Mr. Akwete, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay. We are trying to tidy up a bit. Good evening. I actually don't know the right time. It's past 4. We've had a very exciting panel, and we could tell from the audience's hands up and contributions that they want to make. We have come not necessarily to close you, but see how best we can continue with the conversation. Reimagining West African Integration is the program, the title on the program. And I think it ends up also talking about futures. The future of the West African community, ECOWAS of the people, peace and prosperity. I think we've been charged. I do not want, if you allow me to go on, I'll be a panelist much more than the chair. So I'm going to try to control myself. We introduce ourselves, and then I'll briefly touch on the subject, how we're going to look about it. And then I start calling the panelists. So to my left, ladies first.
Hello, everybody. My name is Devwode Rume. I'm an early career researcher focused on using communications and storytelling to drive change, civic engagement. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Egghead Odewale, and I'm currently the Director of Policy and Operations at Amandla Institute.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brigadier General Faye Babakar. I'm from Senegal. I'm a peace and security expert. Thank you.
My name is Abdullahi Shehu. I'm a professor of criminology and security studies and former ambassador.
I think we'll go straight away. Reimagining West Africa or West African integration, the future of the West African community, ECOWAS of the people, peace and prosperity. I think what I'm going to do, first of all, is to draw attention to the fact that ECOWAS of today, if we were to look 20 years back or 30, is a different stage. We have 3 countries who have checked out of ECOWAS. We have jihadists in our communities, in some of the countries, the 3 countries that have left. We have Russia in Mali and other places in Niger. And we, to a large extent, there's a feeling that ECOWAS is not as strong as it is, and that member countries have left. We are not seeing those who truly are standing to defend our democracy. And that in itself creates a lot of anxiety and probably a search for what it is that will put ECOWAS back to be the ECOWAS we knew it to be. And the ECOWAS we knew it to be was that, you remember, there was a time after the civil wars in Liberia, Sierra Leone, or even as it somehow had thought but not completely ended. We had leaders in ECOWAS who decided that they would secure democracy in West Africa. President Rawlings, former President Rawlings of Ghana. We have President Olusegun Obasanjo. Then we had Senegal and La Côte d'Ivoire. These were the 4 countries that had guaranteed democracy in West Africa to a large extent in that period. And today, when you look at the story, it's a different thing. Ivory Coast, I don't know if it's still part of the 4 guarantors of our constitutional order through the ECOWAS. Senegal still is, Ghana is, but we are not sure about Nigeria playing the role it played then. And in that sense, democratization in West Africa, or consolidating democracy, raises some questions, doubts. This situation is compounded by the fact that we have Russian forces in Chad and other places. The Chinese are in, but not dabbling in the political situation and maybe supporting various other groups. So ECOWAS of today, looking back, probably would make us a little pessimistic. The French are weak. La Côte d'Ivoire president has won elections the 4th term. And we do not see the ECOWAS that speaks for countries to adhere to their democratic constitution and other. So I would see in my mind 3 countries, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria maybe, but it's still a power to reckon with. And in that context, we ought to ask ourselves if the future of the West African community can be guaranteed as it was some 10, 15, or 20 years back. And how are we going to do that? I have more to say, but I will discipline myself and turn to my partners, who I think West Africa's democratic future could be better explained by them, or put some proposals forward based on the analysis that would enable us at the end of the day look at a number of questions that we are asked to address, framing questions. Looking back into the future, what forms of ECOWAS integration can be responsive to various political communities for effective prosperity? It's on your program, so I'm just reading. 2, what organizing logic will necessitate a transformed people's ECOWAS? 3, how is the next generation of leaders reshaping ideas of regional integration and political community? I take it that the next generation of leaders will mean the youth. It's an amorphous group. I don't even know those who are affiliated to parties, but they have their own ideas on what they want to do to secure ECOWAS and Africa for themselves, because the opportunity to migrate to Europe, whether by sea in the north through Morocco or Libya or in other places, have been closed up. And this is one of the most educated youth we have. Most of them university graduates. It doesn't mean those who haven't gone to the university are not involved, but they are no longer wanted in Europe, and it's very difficult to find a way there, or to the US. We then would have to talk about what lessons can a future ECOWAS learn from Continental organizing framework and relationship with the African Union. I think for the African Union, what is important for us to know is that it is not the African Union we had 20 years ago or something, because it has moved towards what one would consider a clear agenda for developing African country by which, or on the basis of which, our regional communities are required to adhere and bring transformation in the next 50 years. The AU Agenda 2063 is on the table. They've done 10 years already, so we have entered the second 10 years. I don't know how many of us have looked at what happened in the first 10 years and the extent to which the AU can provide the leadership required, maybe the resources as well, and see how democratic stability in West Africa can bring transformational development in the West African region. Look at East Africa, look at Southern Africa, and so on. I think what will strike you is that democracy is in trouble, and probably few countries could provide leadership and turn it around. So on that note, I think I will start the conversation. Hello. I know who switched it off, but it's okay. I'll go on. On that note, these are 4 men and a lady. Okay. I tell you, I don't want to talk anymore because the panelists are already deciding who is going to start first and who follows. So in that case, I think I would ask General El Haji Baba Kafai to kick us off.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. Thank you, moderator. Thank you for giving me the floor. I would like to thank Amandla Institute for inviting me to this forum, which since yesterday looks for answers on the viability of the current integration models, the adaptability in the face of geopolitical, technological, and climate change, the legitimacy of regional organizations to the people, and most especially the effectiveness of existing integration mechanisms. At a time when we are looking forward, focusing on the lessons learned from the past, the issue relating to the form of integration that meets the need of diverse political needs in the region is critical. Recent challenges, military coup, security threats, the non-satisfied populations. This makes us to rethink the regional integration model, the ECOWAS for the people, based on peace and prosperity for all, as required as stated in the 2050 agenda, requires deep transformation of our institutional approaches. I will speak to this point on 3 aspects. First, the current limitations of our model, the transformational model, and the pillars for collective prosperity. The limits of the current model. First, we need to take note that an institutional integration, the current ECOWAS architecture, has a major limitation. How an integrated project will project our interests at the expense of the interests of the people? West African people always see ECOWAS as a remote, bureaucratic institution whose decisions are far from our daily realities. This apparatus and basic institution explained by the low feeling of regional belonging and pessimism in relation to decisions and integration projects. The inadequacy in the face of the new security dynamic, contemporary security threats, terrorism, transnational criminality, community conflicts requires some collective response. ECOWAS response, which is seen as militarized, has not been able to address the root causes of instability. Thirdly, uncompleted mechanisms. Intra-African trade accounts for less than 15% of the total trade of the region. West African economies are guided towards outside, particularly with former colonial powers and new emerging partnerships. The single currency project ECO symbolized the deepening of integration, the macroeconomic divergence, political reticence, and debate on monetary issues has delayed this project, which is key for an economic union. On this issue, what is the transformative vision? The transition to the ECOWAS of people, integration from bottom top, putting people at the center. This form of responsive integration that we wish need to come from the community itself. It involves valuing dynamism, which has been working for centuries, traditional markets that bring together traders from many countries, the languages that cut across our borders, and also methods that are used as social integrations. We need to decentralize the decision-making process of ECOWAS, the civil society organizations and professional organizations, transnational and religious centers should be full-fledged stakeholders for integration. The ECOWAS Parliament has to use its powers and it needs to be strengthened, and its members should be elected from the universal ballot box, which will create a space for inclusion. Economic inclusion should be at the center of this project. Small and medium-sized enterprises that employ large parts of the population need to have access to technology. Human capitalism as a foundation. No prosperity is possible without massive investment in education and health. A regional economic process which is ambitious should guarantee basic education and quality education for all West Africans and promote technical and professional education based on the needs for regional market and facilitate mobility and mutual understanding. Health, youth, and ecological transition as an opportunity. Transition to renewable energy accounts for a historic opportunity. We have the sun, we have an important hydroelectrical power, we have electric interconnectivity, the creation of regional markets, the transformation of the regional market. Agriculture that employs the majority of the active population should be modernized based on agroeconomic principles, preserving the soil and biodiversity, and integrated management of the basin, the coordinated fight against desertification and the protection of our forests are regional methods that need collective actions. In conclusion, our new regional social contract and ECOWAS for the people, for the prosperity of all, cannot be achieved. This contract should be based on trust that is required and not deserved, which needs an institution with placing accountability at the center of the functioning of ECOWAS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to begin by extending my appreciation to the Amandla Institute and other organizers for inviting me to contribute to this debate. And having said that, I will take 30 seconds of my time to address the concerns of the moderator when he was identifying political leaders in the region. He said Senegal, Ghana, and maybe Nigeria. I'm an academic, not only an academic, I'm an ambassador for life. So let me give you some tips here. When the ECOMOC was established, it was decided that a Ghanaian general would lead the forces. When it was reported to President Jerry Rawlings, he said, "What do you mean? You mean that Nigeria with the number of troops, and you think a Ghanaian general can command the troops?" And that was what led to the change of the commander to General Dogaro of Nigeria. That is leadership. Number two, today and for the past 50 years, Nigeria has contributed over 60% of the ECOWAS community levy. That is leadership. Number 3, other interventions of recent should clear your doubt that regardless of the challenges that Nigeria would face, Nigeria remains an unassailable leader in the region and indeed in Africa. Now, addressing your issue of discussion this afternoon, I could see that we need a functional integration. We need a flexible integration. And we need a people-centered integration. And we can achieve this in 5 ways. 1, with respect to economic integration, we should aim to create a resilient economy by doing the following. 1, we must focus on key sectors that will enhance our interdependence: energy, transportation, digital transformation. Secondly, real, truly trade facilitation, not free trade rhetorics. In other words, we must harmonize and standardize our products in order to be competitive in the global market. Therefore, we must digitize our borders and border crossing. And also, we need to enhance our monetary and financial interoperability of a payment system before we can transform into a single currency. On political and institutional integration, we should aim to strengthen regional governance and accountability. And here, we may consider 3 options. 1, we allow countries that are ready to integrate faster to go ahead with what they are doing without delaying the others. Secondly, we may have to encourage subsidiarity principle. For example, regional blocs that have emerged like the UMOA can be encouraged to integrate based on their comparative advantage, and others can follow. And thirdly, we should introduce a stringent peer review and enforcement of ECOWAS protocols in order to ensure that whatever protocols we adopt are enforceable. On security and peace integration, we should aim to build collective stability and conflict prevention. Here, our principles should be guided by merging peace with intelligence sharing and counter-terrorism across the region and coordination. Secondly, ECOWAS has to adopt a human security approach. In other words, we need to address the root causes of insecurity: poverty, unemployment, etc., etc. Thirdly, we may have to urgently institutionalize the ECOWAS standby force and early warning systems with local participation. I underline the local participation. On socio-cultural and human integration, we need to show tangible results. In other words, we should try to digitize free movement. I could see that process has started in Lomé. If you are passing through Lomé, they expect you to check in your room before you even go to the airport. That is a commendable initiative. Secondly, we need to increase education and labor mobility by harmonizing our educational standards. And thirdly, we need to increase cultural exchanges and media collaboration, as well as language integration, so that we can be one single community. On digital and environmental integration, we should aim to build modern connectivity by investing heavily in regional data economy cybersecurity protocols, and interoperability of e-governance and security systems. I believe on these 5 cardinal principles that are contained in the Vision 2050 of ECOWAS, we can make significant progress during the review of the ECOWAS at 50th anniversary. I thank you.
Thank you, General. You know, I'm an ardent believer in Nigeria's leadership and working closely with Ghana that has brought about very important goals in the sub-region. So what you attributed could be a slip of tongue or misinformation. I need to correct that. Because without Nigeria and Ghana, I think things will be difficult. Because Nigeria pays a lot of that. That which supports ECOWAS interventions. So that's to correct it. I think we've had some important positive suggestions. One of the challenges that I think we should consider is that we've entered a phase where you wouldn't say that the way ECOWAS and the Nigerian and Ghanaian leadership, even Dakar, I think the problem now will be La Côte d'Ivoire, the situation there, and how much more the quadrant that we had in the past will still be constituted involving Abidjan. I think it's something that we need to think through. But it's important for us to recognize that the ECOWAS interventions before AU Agenda 2063 and also the kind of resources it committed, not only soldiers, but it financed quite a lot of things, might not be exactly as it is. If you talk about AU Agenda 2063, there is a democracy. The futures we are looking at is that West Africa will be just like the other sub-regions, will be a strongly democratic sub-region. And who leads that? And how can we do that? Are issues on the table that we should discuss. Because if you look at the sub-region as it is now, the divisions are clear, the resource challenges are clear. Nigeria, as it played its role earlier on, I think we'll still have quite a lot to look up to. Look at Chad, what happened there, and look at the areas where we've also had coups in the sub-region. I think we have to ask ourselves, how do we constitute the quadrant? Senegal, Ivory Coast, or Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, and Ivory Coast. Beyond them, maybe Guinea has money, but Guinea is under military rule. And it has a lot of money now, as we heard, but we haven't known how much it's contributing to ECOWAS initiatives. And maybe some diplomacy will be required. The second point here is also to understand that the AU Agenda 2063 itself has the political aspects, the economic aspects, and others. They've done first 10 years. We are looking at the next 10 years. But funding has become a major challenge. Just look at Europe. The EU, for instance, says it is going to focus more on trade and investment than aid. The US aid had pulled out. The Ukraine situation means that most European countries are now thinking about their own security. Nonetheless, they have great interest in Africa, not just West Africa generally. So the question is, how do we mobilize resources amongst ourselves? The AFTFCA is in Ghana. There are other initiatives, young Nigerians and others are taking initiatives to invent. What is the policy that is guiding this that says the aim is to strengthen regions rather than specific countries? And that this is what we now have to look for, so that when aid or not aid or capital investment is what they want to do in our economies, we are also able to direct them to support our entrepreneurs, our youth, in their innovation and invention and build a strong economy. I think these are new elements that we will consider. But let me come to you with your beard. You may want to.
Thank you, Professor Kwete. Thank you. I think I'm rather going to be responding to some of the framing questions that we've put here, particularly the first question, and mostly from very personal experiences that I've had. I recall, even till now, if you want to, first on banking, I had about monetary transfers and, exchanges. And I had something to that effect from Ambassador Shehu. If today I want to transfer money to Ghana or even Benin Republic, it's probably going to be denominated in some foreign currency, and I have to route it through either some bank in Europe or America before the people from just next door can get that money. I think it doesn't augur well for an ECOWAS of the future that is looking at integration. So how do we begin to move our money across the regions without, interbank transfer that is smooth, that is easy? Even with EcoBank, you still have to have a corresponding bank that is outside of the region. That is one. And tied to that is also that if I pick up my Naira and I get to maybe Central Market in Ghana, perhaps I can change. But I'm not sure if I take the CD from Ghana, I come to any market in Nigeria, I will see anyone who is going to change this for me. I think that presents a difficulty that does not facilitate trade and interaction and integration between the peoples of this country. So more so also for other countries within the sub-region. Also, since mid-2000s, at least that I have been involved in issues of regional integration, it's almost the same conversation. You have a conference or a meeting, you want to travel, you are planning. It's always difficult to move around. You can't even wake up in the morning and just decide that I want to go and sleep in Dakar today. Because by the time you look at the options, it's either it's going to be expensive or there's no direct flight. I recall the days we used to go to Niamey. You leave from Nigeria, Abuja. You have to, sometimes you travel to Lagos, go by road to Cotonou. You take Air Senegal, go to Dakar before you come to Niamey. At other times, the easiest one then was that you take a flight to France before you can get to Niamey. It's still almost the same thing presently. These things have improved, but regional integration. I recall 2 years ago, myself and 2 other friends, we got Schengen visa, got to France, hired a vehicle, and we traveled 15 countries in 3 weeks. We can't do that in West Africa. I've had the opportunity of traveling across the coastal road from Lagos all the way to Abuja. But the difficulty, the harrowing experience, the treachery of these roads does not encourage that kind of movement, and you cannot integrate when you have these kind of challenges. These facilities, if they are there and people choose not to travel, I think it is fine. But the fact that you don't even have them, or that when you have the need to make this movement, you don't have the facilities to ease the movement, I think it doesn't speak to an ECOWAS of the future that is looking at integrating people and building, a common union across the region. I know that ECOWAS doesn't. There's visa freedom for movement, but it's not as free as we say it. There are certain other conditionalities. If you don't, even without the visa, you can only stay 90 days. But those because I know ECOWAS heralded the notion about ECOWAS of people, integrating people rather than institutions or government. But the Europeans have done this, and they have moved further and faster than we have done. Now you can be citizen of one country, one European country, and decide in the morning that you don't want to be in that country again, move to another country, and you leave without let or hindrance. But it's not as easy in ECOWAS. So even when you have visa freedom, you cannot stay beyond 90 days. You cannot travel without a passport. You cannot travel even if you have a national ID card that is recognized and it is in the database. I think these are some of the very simple but important issues that ECOWAS needs to focus on, and is how people integrate and unionize going forward. Thank you. I stop there.
Thank you very much. ECOWAS on its own, I don't know how it will generate.
Sorry, I forgot. I want to make one more point. We also need to decolonize ourselves and our institutions. I can imagine if we have this meeting without all of these phony phones that we call ourselves. I have never heard anybody in Asia being referred to as Anglophone or Francophone, Lusophone. But in this region, if you don't, categorize people properly, you are going to raise, a battle that you cannot finish. Why do we not have an integrated language that is essentially our own language, rather than all these imported languages that we now hold very dearly? And if you don't make arrangements for your meetings to be conducted in these languages, our people don't even recognize the language, our own languages again. And as Professor Obono contributed earlier, we now call our own languages vernacular. Yet there is Hausa that is actually regionally acceptable in many of the countries of the region. But we didn't adopt that. We are looking at adopting English, French, Portuguese. And if you don't now bring these languages into the room, you create a quarrel. I don't think we need to decolonize from that also.
To contribute to what has been said already, there is a huge disconnect between the reality of the young people and ECOWAS. If you don't play in the field, if you're not in the development sector, the only thing you know about ECOWAS is the passport. If you go to the community and you ask a local trader, what do you know about ECOWAS? Person probably doesn't even know about ECOWAS because they don't have a local passport. And that is something we need to take forward in the next 50 years. We have young people, there is AI that is fueling a lot of disinformation, misinformation, alternative information. So there is a lot of distrust in the system because it is fueled by so many fake news. We have people who probably use Facebook. They're not researchers. They don't do deep finds. And the thing they would see about ECOWAS once they search the internet is Niger leaving ECOWAS and all of the fake videos online. That fuels fear. So in moving forward and in reintegration, we should think about ECOWAS communication strategy, how it harnesses the young people. How can we take the message to the grassroots? How can we look at a trader and ask the person about ECOWAS, and in their local language, they can tell you a thing or two about ECOWAS. So if we're not thinking in that direction, I don't know that we're really talking about reintegration, because it's a huge, huge gap. Thank you.
I'll take it that we've done our first round. You've raised pertinent issues. I would like to go to the audience for them to also make some contributions on what you've said. I am not seeing hands up, but okay. I think we're going to start from the back. Do you have microphones for them too? Yes. The gentleman could come forward. I thought there was a mic. Yeah. Please come forward and come. Okay.
Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful to be part of here. My name is Jimlas. I wanted to lend my voice to the decolonization of the of Africa. My own concern will be majorly the decolonization of the curriculum, of the Western curriculum. Up until now, in as much as so much has changed over time, and the age of AI and technology that we are in and innovation, our universities in Africa is still saddled with curriculums that are not relevant to people. Are still going to study for degrees in universities and our polytechnics that are not even relevant at all to today's world. And the decolonization agenda for Africa should be targeted towards the upcoming generation, but it seems as if we have a lost generation already that have not done African good. Because we are here and had several horrifying experiences traveling from one African country to the other. I just got back from a conference in Namibia a few days ago, and I had to go through some funny experiences because I'm carrying a Nigerian passport, and then we are here discussing this thing every time, and there is so much barrier. When are we going to do something really? This is a call to the leaders of Africa. When are we really going to do something? We're still speaking other people's languages, and we're not even encouraging. The Chinese have done very well in teaching and educating their people in their indigenous languages. And that has brought a lot of development and growth, and what China is going is the kind of result that China is having today. Can we just begin to address the issue of education? If someone does not have a degree, you are not qualified to stand tall in the society when you can actually be very educated and be skillful without having the English degree. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Yes, there's a lady, please. Do you have a mic? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I would like to talk on the future for what the ECOWAS want for the people. And on that regard, I want to speak on inclusivity. So I'm talking about that we should also try to make effort on including diverse groups. When you look at Africa as a whole, the first thing you have to understand there is the ethnic groups. So it is all over African continent, is all over the countries, is all over the state. And even when you go to even state and even local government, I was surprised one day I was speaking to a colleague from Akwa Ibom, and he was telling me that he married a wife from the same local government, and yet they don't speak the same language. So that's to tell you the number of ethnic kingdoms that surround African continent and West African continent. So that diverse group inclusivity is very, very important in order to forge ahead the citizen-centered approach, because you must understand the people that you are trying to strategize and plan that program for. For you to understand my interest, you must understand my background. So that cultural, ethnic, diverse inclusion is very, very significant for the future of ECOWAS, for us to implement that citizen-centered approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for a very interesting session. I just want to chip in line with my brother, comrade Eket. Studies confirm that the integration process in Europe was possible because of the level of development in the European states. So this confirms that integration works better when there's some level of economic development have been achieved. So if you want to achieve integration in West Africa, then there must be some appreciable level of economic development by the West African states, right? And that's very, very important. The last one I always talk about is also how do we address the ethnic suspicion in West Africa. Again, Comrade Eged also talk about the adoption of a language as a lingua franca. Which language are you going to adopt? You mentioned Hausa. If you now say Yoruba man should go and study Hausa, that's problematic because it's been interpreted as imperialism, you know, Hausa Fulani agenda, all those kind of things. So it's a major problem that has to be addressed. And that's also part of the discourse on integration we're talking about. Thank you very much.
Okay, you are close by.
Yeah, thank you very much. To bridge the gap of
Your name first, please. Identify yourself.
I am Akim Jamil. To bridge the gap of disconnect according to the young lady, I think we need to include ECOWAS integration in our school curriculum. But I have a little addition. We have to start from primary school. Our children should be familiar with ECOWAS right from infancy. If we are really serious, if we are thinking of the next 50 years, it is imperative for our pupils in primary school to learn about ECOWAS as a regional organization by introducing it in school curriculum and basic concepts about regional integration like cultural diversity and economic cooperation. Because it's going to be a suitable approach. You can call it indoctrination if you like, but this should become a part of fundamental orientation of ECOWAS citizens from childhood. And this should have a technology background that will be updated in the curriculum as new technology emerges. At secondary school level, students can delve deeper into the history, structure, and functions of ECOWAS while exploring its impacts on West African countries and citizens. And this should also be technologically based with critical thinking and analysis. Then incorporating ECOWAS into the curriculum will go a long way in making students to develop a deeper understanding of regional cooperation, and it will educate even students in primary school can come home and educate their parents about ECOWAS. Then this should be ratified at the ECOWAS Parliament so as to have a legal backing. And again, we also need the political will to be able to do this. Thank you very much.
I think I'll do two more here so you can get some answers. Your mic, please. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that there needs to be curricular change, pedagogical modifications, and all that. But I think awareness is best created as an outcome of lived experience. And ECOWAS structurally exists a step above the nation. And you find that at the community level, most of the citizens there being poor are alienated from governance in their own countries. Okay, they don't know how the mechanics, the mechanisms of government, what rights they are entitled to in their own countries, and it becomes a little fictional to expect that they can bypass that and start having a profoundly lived experience of a conurbation in a sense. So we need to, one, I think, adopt a life course perspective, which I think was integrated in the community strategic framework that was supposed to run from 2016 to 2020. The idea of the youth becoming problematic is a distinctly Western industrial production. Adolescence as a problematic phase in life is not biological. It was created by the demands of the first industrial revolution. In other parts of the world, where they were not disturbed or disrupted by that revolution and the industrialization that then took place, you find out that adolescence was not problematic at all, because they knew what they were doing. David was out looking after the sheep of his father, and then the young people also were custodians of certain kinds of vigilanteism in traditional Africa. If we adopt a life course perspective, this is what will happen. in terms of perinatal care, in terms of antenatal care. We will know what the needs of the citizen are before and immediately after being born. We will know what the child needs. We will know what women require in terms of equalizing the equation. We will know how to cure poverty within the working class. We will know what young people need, and then we would also provide for the elderly across the life course. Once you have a disjointed, pragmatic, disrupted idea that is not holistic at all, that is not organized, organic at all, you are going to have human beings suffering at one phase in their lives, either in the midpoint when they are young, or towards the old age where they age into ignominy, die unsung, and have no access toward resources. The community has to come up with some kind of peer review mechanism that shows the adequacy of policy and policy implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and learning across the life course of the citizen in the region. Thank you, sir.
All of us to remember that we are not looking at a specific country's strategy and policies and programs to deal with that. It's very important. But there is also a collective strategy. If you take AU Agenda 2063, it's into 5 10-yearly strategies. I wonder if it's been extensively disseminated to see what can be collectively done in the various sub-regions, coming together, pulling resources and so on. So I appreciate the intervention you've done, but I think for the last 10 years, the African Union, working with the various sub-regions and their governments and so on, has come up with a 50-year strategy for transforming Africa. The AU Agenda 2063, every 10 years, there is another set of objectives, but without leaving the gaps that needs to be, closed to give us a stronger economy, a more development impact, and unify us.
With respect, I think we will have this conversation later because I think you thoroughly misunderstood where I was coming from or going to. But in the interest of time, I think we very definitely should have this conversation after this. But that's not what I was addressing at all.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to add to what you're doing, that there is a bigger framework now to conceive of what we need to do to strengthen West Africa and other African countries under the AU Agenda 2063, a 10-yearly plan. And we would still have our regional or our country-specific programs, but these are also to guide us. General, please. I thought you wanted to respond to that one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I agree entirely with the sentiments regarding decolonizing our mentality and action. That is very, very true. But you see, you cannot take multiple steps at the same time. You need to be strategic in what you are doing. ECOWAS was not created to replace member states. ECOWAS, the purpose of ECOWAS is to serve as a normative framework to facilitate coming together as a collective security and for promoting economic integration, social and political development. Therefore, most of the issues that have been raised regarding challenges with free movement, with residency, with educational qualification and standards and labor mobility are things that member states can do on their own. And when they do very well, ECOWAS will be strengthened as a regional body to promote that. I can cite an example where even the EU countries you are citing have learned from Africa. The free movement was introduced by ECOWAS in the whole world before even EU introduced the Schengen visa. So it means we have led the world in a best practice to introduce something that is beneficial to the world, and they can learn from us. So there are many other things that member states can do to better ECOWAS. And finally, that leads me to the issue the moderator raised regarding what sort of organizing logic we need to deepen this integration. In my view, we need to move from sovereignty to shared governance. And that is where we are talking about inclusivity, involving more of the civil society. But we must have to accept and agree on a principle to bring in the civil society and other stakeholders, and how we can empower the non-state actors to contribute to regional integration. Of course, we may think about reforming the machinery of integration. That is, the ECOWAS was transformed from a secretariat to a commission. The purpose of that transformation was to make ECOWAS as a more efficient machinery to deepen regional integration. Now, we need to promote bottom-top integration by linking our countries with infrastructure, by establishing regional hubs, and encouraging the kind of subsidiarity that works. We also need to uplift the youth and non-state actors to contribute and prioritize regional value chains in agriculture, in technology, etc., etc. So these are not things that must be done solely at the regional level. ECOWAS is as strong as its member states. And if member states are doing well, ECOWAS will ultimately be doing very well. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je pense que...
Thank you so much. I think we've discussed this issue very well. I would like to come back to this issue of decolonization. Our current youth are not colonized. They see us doing it, and they are going the same vein with our seniors that are going towards the end. Now it is left for the seniors to come back and take this into consideration, and together we will help them to come out of the situation, and young people will take their destiny in their hands and do the needful. In this regard, I think it is important for us to focus on our current assets. African youths are assets. Our resources are assets. So for this youth and young population, I think it is important to take demography as a driving force. With a population that will extend to 800 million, we are a market that will be vital for investors. Going from that approach, it will be important for us to be involved in this investment and in this market. We need to have something to offer in this market. Secondly, we have digital transformation. Technologies can address physical obstacles we are facing together. The trader from Benin can sell his product to Nigeria without traveling. And mobile and cross-border movement and other factors. Another generation of leaders, these young people, leaders that are trained, are less attached to post-colonial approaches, and they can bring a new Pan-African approach. That is why Africans feel as Africans before their countries. Before the digital transformation, we can have some such concepts, and also renew the Pan-African narrative and start talking to young people about this Pan-Africanism. We need to have cross-border platform and also follow them up. These young people, we talked about the development of value chains. We need industrialization that focuses on country components. For example, the cotton in Benin processed in Ghana, or another cotton that might be processed in another country. So this will help us have generate jobs and also meet part of employment, and this will also help us to create local value chains. In this area, it is important for us to have regional universities specialized where certificates are recognized at the regional level. This will help us to you have your certificate in petroleum in Senegal, you can work in Nigeria. So these are areas we need to work on. And why not? We can facilitate the transfer of technology, which will help our young people to create jobs. And this will help us a lot in our discussions. Nobody made mention of research and development, but as we need this to support young people so that tomorrow we can take our destiny in our hands in terms of technology and industrial development. Thank you.
Yes, please, Christian.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. I have so much to say, but after the statement by Ambassador Sheku and General Faye, I will just emphasize the fact that we can never overemphasize the importance of talking to the youth, to have the idea of integration in the youth so that they are mobilized and ensure that we can move towards the attainment of our objectives. In addition, it is important for us to be realistic and also to be ambitious in our approach, and we need to have a voluntary approach. In this regard, I will emphasize that a speaker made mention of this, the importance of integration through production and the development of industries that process our goods and also the creation of community infrastructure. I think that if we adopt that approach, we will be on track. I would also like to say that it is important for us to improve on the functioning of the ECOWAS Commission through digitalization, of course, and also through managing an institutional memory. Today, we have documents that we cannot find because there is no memory. For about 4 years now, we have no Secretary General. So that function, we need to create an institutional memory for ECOWAS and to manage it. We have that issue. We also have the fact that we need to take into consideration the fact that integration cannot be handled by one state factor. We have non-state factors that are also involved in the integration effort, not only economic factors, but also the civil society. I think that is the way ahead, and we need to do it with commitment and also by having the idea of ensuring that we give the right place to the youth. We need to also bring women on board. That's my contribution to what has been said by Ambassador Sheru and General Afai. Thank you so much.
Please kindly tell us your name so that it will go into the records.
My name?
Yes.
My name is, je m'appelle Babacar Carlos.
My name is Babacar Carlos. I'm a retired ambassador. I was advisor to the ECOWAS president. Thank you.
I switch. Yes, please. Your name first and then the point.
Thank you. My name is Emeka Bertram. I represent Persons with Disability Action Network, Human Rights Ambassador, National Human Rights Commission, Nigeria. I personally appreciate the organizers who have done so much. Historically, you have to look at the interventions they've done in their past as actors in mainstreaming the rights of gender, people with disabilities, and then inviting us to be part of this proceeding. And I want to believe that in course of this, how do young people in the region attain and express their agency within the framework of ECOWAS region? I am speaking on behalf of the 60 million persons with disability in West Africa, like I spoke yesterday, are the new regional leaders in ECOWAS integrating disability rights in their vision of inclusive development. I believe that one of the mechanisms is to see how we can adopt a meaningful participation of people with disability and see how we can bring them into the parliament. Oh, sorry. Thank you. We're looking at how we can bring them into the parliament and see how we can have a future-proof ECOWAS that ensures that all rights of everybody, including people with disabilities, are incorporated. And most of the interactions we're having, if we can have them in alternate medias, in brailles, in formats, sign language interpreters, and mediums that can also accommodate the interest of the groups that we belong to. We would like to be part of the council, and so that we can also help in bridging the peace and install security, and of course, peace building in Africa and West Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Faisal Garba. Two quick points. The first one is General Fai's point around value chains and industrial innovation. And I think that's really important in terms of foregrounding complementarity as opposed to the logic of competition that drives ECOWAS at the moment. If you think of what the EPS did to industrial policy in the sub-region, it has created a situation whereby countries duplicate each other's strategies, whereby before EPAs and open regionalism, the idea had been that you have these backward and forward linkages, okay, whereby each country is able to focus on its area of comparative advantage. So focusing on complementarity, therefore, links directly to the question of free movement, right? In the sense that those traders that move across the region are not only engaging in commercial activity relegated to exchange, but actually upscaling through crafts work and small-scale production that could actually create a value chain if we upscale it into industrialization, which is grounded. The second point I want to make is related to that question of language, right? It's true that our diversity means that ethnicity becomes a major question in the public sphere. But within the context of mobility, we begin to see these things as social products that change. They are not fixed. To cite an example, in Ghana, the Yoruba population is largely part of what we call the Zongo communities. The Zongo communities are these stops that were created from the trans-Saharan trade, but continue to serve as sites of migrant communities across the sub-region. And so the Zongo communities are connected through the Hausa language. So Yoruba people in Ghana who live in Zongos are part of the local structures of Zongos that use Hausa as a vehicle of communication. Now, that example begins to show us how these differences break down within the context of everyday life through struggles for livelihood. So instead of reifying these identities as fixed and unchanging, we begin to see them as very much linked to how social processes shift and change around struggles over livelihoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Panelists on my right, could you comment on some of the points made?
Okay, I think my point on language, I'm not sure if it was my proposal about an African language that can help us build unity or commonality. I'm not sure it was prescriptive. I mean, if a Yoruba man is opposed to learning Hausa or adopting Hausa as the lingua, the Hausa man is opposed to Yoruba, but both of them will fight tooth and nail to go and learn English or French and die on the heels of use of these foreign languages. I think it leaves much to be desired. Minus that is that, I mean, language is very, very powerful. And I mean, I dare say that in Nigeria, we've picked up English and sort of recreated it. And now we have what we call Pidgin. And Pidgin is now gradually being internationalized. And it's a language that, you know, at least can be shared. And we have that even to some extent, what is called Creole in Sierra Leone, and in other places. And you know, a huge population of Nigeria exists in Cote d'Ivoire that did something. When they got there, in learning French, they were using pidgin to learn the French, and they created what is now pidgin French. If I recall someone cautioning me to not go to Cote d'Ivoire to learn French because their French is not formal French. And I felt, a prayer at some point where I met an ambassador and I was greeting him on Dikwa, which is not proper French, because that was what I could hear in the streets of Abuja. So it is important that we can, come off these phones, as I said, and be able to find a language under which we can operate. And I'm sure that that would rapidly help us to integrate. There was also the point about our curriculum, and I do agree fully, about the fact that we need to change the curriculum, but not about whether or not we teach ECOWAS in the schools. Rather, like we used to have WAEC, but gradually, and I thought that sort of integrated us, especially in the English-speaking West African nations, where we have the curriculum was similar, and then you know that you get to a certain stage of schooling, of learning, that you then take similar exams. But now it's not the same again. I think WAEC now is mostly in Nigeria. So if we want to, in one part, we want to integrate, but on some of the actions, we are actually disintegrating. And I think that does not speak to ECOWAS of the future that is looking at building unity of people. And then there was a point made about whether it is infrastructure or not that really helps to integrate. And I don't think it's an either-or situation. Yes, there's in the importance of infrastructure, cannot be overemphasized. We need to build that, but it needs to respond to the existential issues. I mentioned something about moving around in West Africa. It's not even easy where you have road. It's not easy to move on the roads. If you ever venture to travel, sir, with your vehicle, and you are lucky to cross the border at Seme, every police stop across between Seme and Ilakonji, you will be stopped for carrying a Nigerian plate number. And we are integrating in ECOWAS. So also if you carry the plate of Benin and you are seen driving on Nigerian roads, the attitude of the police is to stop you first and ask you all sorts of questions, or even impound your vehicle. There was a time that it was reported about how you have all of these stops moving from Semeboda to Mile 2 in Lagos State, all within Lagos State. You have multiple stops of different agencies of the same government asking almost similar questions. That cannot bode well for a region that wants to integrate. And I shared my experience of how we moved from countries to country in Europe. We're not even European citizens. And almost no time where we stopped. You don't even know. Sometimes it is on your phone that you know that you have crossed from one country to another because of the telecommunication signals that you receive. And I think we need to move even further. These are examples that we share. And if we really want to build a prosperous ECOWAS of the people, I think these are some of the kind of infrastructures that we need to give to ourselves. And I must say also that ECOWAS needs to really now that Nigeria is doing the Lagos-Calabar Superhighway, then we need to take it also from that Lagos all the way to Banjul. That superhighway needs to cross the region on the other side. So also the plan that has been on ground for a railway infrastructure, a regional railway infrastructure, I think it's also a time to revisit it and really build that infrastructure, and I'm sure it will help our regional integration efforts.
Piggybacking on what he has just said, in fostering regional integration as well, there is also the way we disseminate information that meets people where they are. my memory fails me now, but there is an African researcher who, in disseminating his research findings, used music in the local language. Aside publishing it in the journal, he used music. And we know that as young people, I think Africa has the youngest population, youth population in Africa, in the world or in the continent. We use social media a lot. There is music, we have Afrobeats, we have tech founders having partners across Africa. So in the curriculum, in bringing ECOWAS to the people at the regional level, we also have to think about the informal economy. One size doesn't fit all. Different approaches should be thought about thoroughly. How do we get to the people being in their lived realities? I think that would also foster a lot of trust, a lot of renewed hope, and a sense of belonging to ECOWAS or the people of ECOWAS. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm turning to the audience, the final round, because you're supposed to close at 5:30. You've spoken, isn't it? Okay, go on.
No, I've not. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Gima Forge. I've listened carefully, and I think there is clarity on the fact that they need to target the youth going forward is something which an ECOWAS for the future and ECOWAS that is people-centric should, focus on. We are all from villages. I like saying this all the time. We're from villages, and our traditional rulers do play an important role in the communities where we come from. In fact, in a lot of places, the traditional rulers are closer to the people than the government itself, so to speak. So I think that, for an ECOWAS of the future that also wants to get across to the youth, those that we will say people at the grassroots, we need to find a way of creating some space, some avenue, some form of structure for traditional rulers to have a space where, they express their voice and, of course, the voice of the people. So I think that's something which we need to also consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. Is there a microphone? Please come forward a bit. Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to speak. My name is Henry Elroy. I'm the director of Footsteps International School, a primary and secondary school here in Abuja. And I've really been grateful for this opportunity to sit down and, listen to great minds and all that we have to say about the future of Africa, West African sub-region in particular. The way I see it, we have been going on with these conversations. Beyond this time, these conversations will still continue, and on and on and on, these conversations will continue. So the question is, at what point do we tell ourselves that enough is enough? At what point do we decide individually that it's time to move West Africa forward? And for me, the way I see it, it just boils down to personal decisions, sincerity. It's because of insincerity that we keep bringing up lots of excuses. We keep hiding under different guises. We talk about women's inclusion. Do women need a space? So just imagine for a moment that we give the women all of the space that they need. Will that change the circumstance of West Africa? We keep talking about, okay, it's about us, My brother just spoke about the traditional rulership. Let's believe that all of the traditional rulers decide that, okay, the West African sub-region should be a possibility. We should move it forward. Will that happen? I think it boils down to personal decisions. And all of the things that we are saying here, no matter what we say, at the end of the day, there are people that are meant to implement all of these suggestions which we are making. How sincere are they to implement these suggestions to the very letter? Yes, the issue of languages is true. We are divided by our language. But in spite of that division, is it not possible for us to still integrate? Can't I translate to my brother sitting beside me who does not understand, even if he doesn't have a translator? So each and every one of us that came here for this program, what was our strategic interest? Have we come here to gain publicity? Have we come here to gain, to be seen, to make contributions so as to also further our own careers? Or are we here to move the West African sub-region forward? This insincerity is even trickling down to our children. It's so bad that even in our schools right now, we still see this insincerity. So I want to stand here to tell each and every one of us that we should make personal decisions. We should decide within ourselves to be sincere, right from the top, from the leadership, and it will trickle down. Perhaps with that, we will make some progress. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Our time is up, but now I'm seeing more hands. Yes, please, get close to that. 2 minutes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I will try and make it snappy since we have limited time. We've had this conversation in many gatherings as this, and the first thing is to always remember is that this is a conceived idea from ECOWAS. There is need for integration, but we are not seeing those practical steps that will guide the implementation of this issue. And gathering in this room is top scholars and people who we revere that should have a say in making these decisions. So when we meet with these top delegates and we are still having to question some of these issues, one gets to worry on how or way forward towards achieving this desire. So from those of us who are still young and who are still looking up to people who are at the top level, and we are still questioning this way, what is the way forward, and so how do we suit the implementation of some of these things? That is on the one part. On the aspect of regional integration, much has been said about language, currency, and all that, but we need to actually go beyond that and say that if we have a dream that we need to start, there is nothing wrong with starting with younger children from school, teaching them a language that we can say, okay, this is an African language that we can all imbibe and follow through with that. And that is the first step towards achieving the regional integration project in Africa and West Africa, per se.
Thank you very much. Could we just sum up in 30 seconds so we wrap up for the ladies?
To wrap up, I would say communication is key and it should be driven by the people. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I want to wrap up by, re-emphasizing the need to really put the people at the center of the regional integration efforts. People should be able to move, and they actually do move. It is when we formalize or over-formalize the process that it becomes difficult. If you go to border towns, I'm not sure that all of these barriers we see at Idiroko, Ilakonji, and all the rest of the places, whether they really exist in our small communities, border communities. Our free movement based on free visa, I think needs to be further improved, that people can actually, if you are a citizen of the sub-region, you don't need to have a requirement for work permit if you want to live in any place in the sub-region. The 90 days limitations should be abolished. Also, that our monetary systems, we need to unify the monetary systems. It should be easy to move money around within the region so as to facilitate trade amongst our people. And I'm sure that would build or contribute to the regional effort, regional integration efforts. I stop here.
Je pense que
I think that integration in some forms is already here. I think we need to accompany it with communication infrastructure, road, railway, and also streams. And the second element is to accompany with the industrial transformation, that is being able to process our products and help our young people work in the area of technology and transformation. Thank you.
When we started yesterday, there was this allegation that the youth and women were not on the table. But we have to conclude together. As it is now, do you agree that the youth have participated more effectively than others and the women have taken ownership? Do we agree with this conclusion? Now, if we agree with this conclusion, there are 3 principles that we will need to see that all of us should promote. 3 values, people-centered values. 1, participation. And participation comes with responsibility. Number 2, inclusivity. You have been given the space, so bring what you have. And number 3 is accountability. So the youth, you are challenged with the current level of technology. You have to create digital innovation and adaptive participation in our regional integration. This is our conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm being one there. This conversation would go beyond this. Integration is real, not only in West Africa, but across the continent. That's what the AU stands for. And even amongst the sub-regions, I think ECOWAS has a pioneering role, and we ought to look at how best we could also learn more. At least we can educate the public, the markets, and others to know what more we can do beyond our countries or our cities, even within our own country. And this is something that we all have to carry forward. Please, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much to our panelists for the depth and the quality of intervention. Please come forward for group photograph. Thank you.
The panel, go for your pictures. And we are going to the closing section. Let me invite the Executive Secretary of CODESRIA to come and give closing remarks and next steps. Dr. Godwin Morunga. Please put your hands together for him. If you clap louder, he will move faster.
Thank you very much, moderator. I feel very excited that one day after the birthday, I not only feel younger, but I feel wiser. But I was told this morning there's no correlation between getting old and getting wiser. So
Let me not pretend that there is anything much that I can add to the conversation that we've had in the last 2 days. I think we have had 2 days of extremely enriching discussions, often some provocative debates, but most importantly, forward-looking reflections on ECOWAS, but also on issues that have a much broader Pan-African relevance. And so it would be wrong to walk out of this meeting imagining that this was singularly a conversation about ECOWAS. I think it has been a conversation that carries some really important Pan-African messages. In a moment when Pan-Africanism isn't thought of too much, I feel that it is something that we want to carry on board and really think about these reflections as not just being relevant to ECOWAS, but being relevant to other regional organizations that have made a difference in the lives of different regions of this continent. Two, we framed our discussion around a provocative question of reimagining West African regional cooperation and interaction by loudly wondering if regional organizations are necessary for regional integration in Africa. And I'm not sure that my own reading of this represents a consensus, but I feel that we try to arrive at some consensus which seemed to make the argument that while regional organizations are indeed necessary, a necessary condition for integration, there was a caveat which seemed to suggest also to me that they alone are not a sufficient element of the agenda. They are not sufficient in driving the agenda for regional integration. So they are necessary, but not necessarily providing a sufficient, themselves being sufficient for the agenda of integration. And I think that there were several reasons canvassed in the discussions around this. One of the reasons for the caveat was that these are one of the reasons for this was around questions of forms of engagement that the regional organizations have fostered in the process of facilitating the drive towards integration. The point there being that while we have been mobilized around a set of actors, while we have developed institutions that are supposed to drive the agenda for integration, clearly the actors who need to be mobilized for the purpose has not been all-inclusive, that there are other actors indeed who ought to be at the table, and there was extensive discussion about the important role that non-state actors could play in driving the agenda, and that engagement with them, in fact, would be a very important part of the work that we need to do. There were debates that were mobilized in our discussion that would be relevant in enjoining all those actors to play a sufficient role in the purposeful drive for the agenda of integration. Indeed, the importance of non-state actors has been repeated several times with an emphasis that the various diversities of the region, be they gender, be they generational, be they in terms of age, be they linguistic, all diversities would be useful actors in driving the agenda of integration, and that a more purposeful, a more deliberate attempt to think through the various actors would be useful in terms of thinking about the ECOWAS of the future, but also important in terms of thinking about the Pan-African agenda that we all, I think, buy into. And so, even though there was greater emphasis on the gender question, even though there was greater emphasis on the youth question, I think that the expansive discussion suggests to me, and suggests to a number of colleagues that I have spoken to, that the diversity question is a lot more important beyond the gender, beyond the youth and generational point that was discussed. But we don't want to undermine the point about gender. I know that there has been a mobilized consensus a few minutes ago about the youth playing a role, the women playing a role. I don't think we want to deceive ourselves that even greater push on the gender question is actually important for making the point around greater participation of women. Because often in some of our institutions, in some of the policies that we develop, it's not too clear and it's not too emphasized that there are specific challenges that women face that are important for the integration agenda. I think that we've had examples cited here about trade across borders, about livelihood questions that become a concern only for women, and that some of these, it's important to begin to emphasize the gender dimension precisely because it has a way of changing the system around which we are working. Among the key concerns that showed up on the table, but I feel that it could have been, we could have had a bigger discussion about this, the role of external actors in the drive towards integration. And that while some of them do in fact play a significant role in terms of facilitating the process of integration through our regional organizations, that the intentions are never always straightforward, the intentions are never always about us. That every external actor who shows up at the table has one hand on the table and another one under the table. And that consciousness around the various roles that the different hands play, I think is important. In the particular case of West Africa, I wish that we had had a really more rigorous discussion around monetary policy. And I feel that we missed one important target around this. Living in Dakar in the last couple of years, looking at the way the youth was struggling against a whole number of institutions, the monetary question sits at the table. And of course, why don't we have the ECO as the currency of the region? I think this is something that we could have had a more rigorous reflection in this meeting. The question about the presence of foreign military bases in this region is more pronounced than many of the other regions on the continent. I feel that we could have had some rigorous discussion around that. But even more importantly, the entry into the region of militia and militaries of other countries that are playing significant role in distorting the agenda of integration is something that we need to talk about. Yes, we talked about insecurity in the region, but I think that a more focused discussion around those issues would have been very useful for the purpose for which we came here. And there is a connection definitely therefore between the presence of foreign military bases and the monetary implications of that in the region. I think somebody talked about the banking system, which constantly gets affected. The movement of money is a particularly serious problem in the region, but also in the Sahel in particular. It does not make sense that in many parts of the continent it takes about 6 hours for you to move money from one joint to the other. And in this region it can be particularly painful, going beyond 4 to 7 days, for instance. There are anti-money laundering laws, there are anti-terrorism laws that have affected not just movement of people, movement of services, but also the movement of money. But also the very important legacy of the French franc and the arrangement around the monetary system that continues to exist in the region is something that is of particular importance to our discussion, and I feel that we could have had a bigger discussion around that. We could also have had a bigger discussion around, a more deep discussion about the issue of minerals, mining. There are discussions to be had about the water masses around the region and the implication that has for our own history, for our own future, and ECOWAS plays a central role in this. And I feel that if we talk about next steps and we are identifying areas of engagement that we need to think about, these could be some of the areas that we want to talk about. To conclude, I think missing from the discussion has been the role of research and the role of higher education institutions. I don't know how we're doing with universities in Nigeria, for instance. I'll just say in Kenya we are having serious problems with universities actually decaying. I think in Kenya we're now in the third week, and I know we're doing badly compared to Nigeria and a few places here. But when you have an education system that is not functional, you have to worry. And I think this shouldn't just be a national question. It should be a regional question. Abdullahi Batili would tell you that in the older days, it was not just not a necessary distinction to say that this is a national university, this is playing a regional role and all that. The university system was intertwined in the region, irrespective of the language distinctions. And I feel that if we're not going to pay attention to research, and if we're not going to pay specific attention to research in the social sciences and in the humanities, we're missing something that is very informative for regional integration. And I just want to conclude by saying that there's no society that has developed based on research that is grudgingly embraced, research that is grudgingly produced, research that is produced based on funding coming from personal pockets. The region has to begin to think about a better framework for mobilizing research. And I just want to think that we need to grow regional civil society organizations that are supporting investment in learning, in higher education, in research. I feel that that is a topic that was missing from this. Otherwise, I want to appreciate the very rich conversations that have taken place. I want to appreciate everybody who has played a role in this. There were very many excellent guests, people from the policy world who have been listening to us, and we have listened to them. I think that this has been a very, very interesting conversation that has taken place. I want to thank the ALC for joining into this conversation. I want to thank Amandla Institute, WATHI, for doing this. I want to thank the program coordinators who have been harassing us, including the one who is standing near me right now. It's in the interest of time, and that's the only reason I appreciate you. Thank you very much. All the very best. And
thank you for your understanding that the harassment is in the interest of time. And as the rapporteurs are putting finishing touches to make the presentation, and then after that we'll call on Ambassador Musa. But let me call on Dr. Garba Bari, a board member of Amandla Institute, to give a brief vote of thanks on behalf of the host.
Very good evening, everyone. I adopt the protocols as already established since yesterday. Mine is a very simple job, just to say a big thank you to everyone for being here. Let me seize this opportunity to thank all the wonderful institutional partners for their roles in bringing about this ECOWAS meeting of experts and the African Public Square. In no particular order, I would want to thank the African Leadership Center, the King's College, University of London, the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa, CODESRIA, the West African Citizen Think Tank, WATHI, and of course our own Amandla Institute for Policy and Leadership Advancement. Our deep gratitude and appreciation to all the moderators of respective panels and the panelists for their incisive presentations. We thank all participants for their contributions and for a very disciplined conduct while all the sessions run. no side talks, no telephone rings, no moving around the halls as presentations were made. In fact, this is one of the most disciplined conferences I have seen and conducted. Our appreciation also goes to all the media partners, SABC, channels, and all the others. The young men and the women with their cameras who have appreciated are also equally very much appreciated here. As we depart, we wish each and every one of us safe return to our respective destinations. And please let us keep in touch with our respective networks that we have built from yesterday up to this very moment. It's very, very important, and this is going to be part of the integration that we have all been talking about in the last 2 days. Thank you, everyone, and have a very good evening.
Excellent vote of thanks. Thank you, Dr. Garba Bari. Can you give him another round of applause? Since yesterday, a group of rapporteurs have been taking notes, and it's my pleasure to invite the chief rapporteur to come and give us the key takeaways before we'll have the closing remarks by Ambassador Musa. Please put your hands together for Mr. James Gardin.
Good evening, everyone. Excellencies, General Sir, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. So on behalf of my colleagues, Mariam, Michael, and Austin, I would like to highlight what we consider to be the key takeaways from this meeting. Over the last 2 days, we have held conversations around the theme, starting out from the opening session, during which the leaders of the convening and partner organizations, including firstly Dr. Muranga, Professor Fumi, my boss, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, and my former boss also, Ambassador Fatah Musa, spoke. They pointed out that the ECOWAS at 50 milestone serves both as a celebration and a call to action, because the region now stands at a crossroad, and that the future of West Africa depends on the choices that we make today. They also reaffirmed the central role of ECOWAS in fostering peace, integration, and collective progress in West Africa, and the urgent need for reinvention to ensure that the community remains relevant. We then held the Africa Public Square debate. During that live debate, we provided a platform for an energizing intergenerational reflection on the future of regional integration in Africa. The various interventions highlighted the following. 1, that there is support for maintaining but reinventing regional organizations, including by making them more inclusive, more transparent, and responsive, aligning their raison d'etre, their missions, visions, etc., with the aspirations of Africans, especially the youth, and that needs to be underlined. Secondly, the need to address the tensions between state-led and citizen-led integration, the imperatives of pragmatic reforms in that regard, including by addressing those institutional and bureaucratic challenges that disconnect communities, citizens from these institutions. Thirdly, the need to prioritize and enhance the infrastructural prerequisites. Please forgive me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. The infrastructural prerequisites, those that are physical, digital, linguistics, educational, and even musical, for functional integration and connectivity whilst also enhancing the inclusion of our rural populations, especially again the youth and the women. So, Excellencies, General Sir, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, following the debate, the meeting of experts convened in 6 successive sessions on reimagining regional integration in West Africa along the following lines. 1. A projection of anticipated key trends over the next 50 years. 2. The future of regional economic integration and sustainable development. 3. The ECOWAS Vision 2050 and new technologies, artificial intelligence, digital transformation, communication, and social media. 4. The future of ECOWAS partnership and relations with partners, and if I recall very well, international organizations in the region. And then the fifth, or the sixth, or the fifth, the future of the West African community, ECOWAS of the people, peace and prosperity for all. Broadly, the discussions provided a reflection on whether ECOWAS, as presently structured, remains fit for purpose and is capable of responding to the evolving aspirations of our citizens, particularly and again women and young people. It also provided a forward-looking assessment of the region's evolution by identifying key drivers of transformation and the critical reforms required to ensure inclusive and sustainable regional integration, and doing so by grounding regional integration on solid foundations, akin to a house, and this I quote, a house that is built on strong foundations and with a stable roof, unquote. Excellencies, General Sir, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the overarching takeaways from these sessions include: 1. That integration without people is an illusion. So ECOWAS must be both a community of peoples and an organization that upholds the regional social contract, where those at the margins of our society and our community, women, youth, the poor, and the disabled, we should change this word to something else here, those living with disabilities, are empowered to thrive. Secondly, that to remain credible and effective, ECOWAS must rebuild trust, close the distance between institutions and citizens, and embody the values of justice, equity, and solidarity that have always defined West African communities. And thirdly, that the next 50 years of ECOWAS will be defined not only by policies and protocols, but by the quality of accountable leadership rooted in the will and participation of the people and a shared vision of the community citizens. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I may have to use my glasses. I try to avoid that. Our reflections also threw up a number of recommendations that should guide the next phase of ECOWAS evolution. And that's one that is economically competitive, socially inclusive, and anchored in the aspirations of its citizens. Some of the key recommendations following that reflection include: 1. That in the light of the emergence of the AES, ongoing efforts to restore the integrity of ECOWAS should take due cognizance of the tensions between state-led and citizen-led integration. And so, ECOWAS, with the support of relevant stakeholders, should address these institutional and bureaucratic challenges that disconnect community citizens so that a reinvented, and would like to point out that all our recommendations highlight this point, so that a reinvented ECOWAS is one that is more inclusive and more responsive to the aspirations of the community citizens. Recommendation number 2. In the light of the significant and perceived decline in democratic governance, marked by a resurgence of military coups, constitutional manipulations by incumbent leaders, and a failure to deliver economic and security dividends to citizens, a reinvented ECOWAS, again with the support of relevant stakeholders, should prioritize ethical leadership and accountability in various spheres of governance, so that the ordinary community citizens, particularly again the youth population, would better appreciate the role and the utility of ECOWAS in facilitating regional integration, particularly in those areas of infrastructure related to innovation, the creative economy, artificial intelligence, sports, among others, through developing and/or enhancing these requisite physical and digital infrastructure for functional integration. Recommendation number 3 is that against the background of the vital role of women and girls in governance, peace, security, and economic development, underlined by how females have contributed to economic activities across our borders on the continent, a reinvented ECOWAS should bridge existing policy practice gaps, create intergenerational spaces, and promote transformational, ethical, and accountable leadership to dismantle rigid hierarchies, inspire cultural shifts, and ensure inclusive participation from community level to regional levels. Recommendation number 4. Against the background of heightened competing geostrategic interest in the region, ECOWAS should build partnerships and relations with international alliances and groups. There's a distinction here, partnerships and relations. However, and most importantly, such partnerships must be respectful of our dignity as a people and of our institutions. And so, the reinvented ECOWAS has to be in a position to make and to implement decisions in such partnerships and relations in ways and manners that are in our own interest, including by committing the required resources, particularly finances, to protect our dignity, the dignity of our peoples and those of our institutions. Our last recommendation, which is recommendation number 5. Against the background of the significant limitations and inadequacies of the existing ECOWAS collective security architecture to effectively and sustainably address our prevailing security threats and challenges, the reinvented ECOWAS, which should be an ECOWAS of the people, has to include the realization of the 5 pillars outlined in the ECOWAS Vision 2050 in all ongoing processes to revise and to enhance our applicable text, placing the peace and the prosperity of the ordinary citizen at the core of ECOWAS interventions, projects, and programs. Excellencies, General Sir, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. So overall, the call to action was clear, and that call is to move from an ECOWAS of states to an ECOWAS of peoples, built on shared prosperity, inclusive governance, and resilience, sustainable regional cooperation and integration. A central point of convergence is that a regional organization like ECOWAS is now more essential than ever. However, we must acknowledge the limitations and challenges in its functioning and its relationship with the community citizen in order to move towards a reconstruction that will enable it to serve the individual and collective well-being of the community citizens. That's what my team and I have put together. We hope it fully captures our discussions yesterday and today. Thank you, Your Excellencies.
Thank you very much. Excellent capturing of what happened in 2 days. I'm sure that it will be sent to all participants. I don't know whether I should ask, does anybody object seriously to anything in that rendition? That if it is released, somebody will die? All right. So, yes.
In my view, that are important. The perspective, you cannot build the future without understanding what would be your positioning in the future. The second is climate. Climate is a major driver at least in the Sahel, but I do guess also in West Africa.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is noted by the group? Yes, quickly.
Merci, c'est juste, je crois que c'est...
Thank you. Maybe this is an oversight. When the rapporteur was talking about the various sessions, he forgot the one on women. Thank you.
The person who will have the last say for this two-day conference, the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, His Excellency, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa. Please put your hands together for him. Please continue clapping. If your clap is very strong, then he will not keep us here for the next 30 minutes. I'm sure you trust Ambassador Musa. Less than 10 minutes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. Yeah, Excellencies, experts, I think we owe ourselves an ovation. You know, may I crave your indulgence? Yeah, to clap for the success of this meeting. Yeah, thank you very much. It has already been said that the very nature of the discussion that have been here, I never saw the camera catching anybody dozing, sleeping, which just tells you about the interest, you know, that this meeting has generated. It has been very participatory, and ECOWAS is very delighted. Let me be clear. ECOWAS throughout this meeting has exercised strategic silence. Strategic silence, you know, simply because we decided to give the citizens of West Africa their say on what they make of the ECOWAS integration project. The only time ECOWAS has intervened during the various discussions that have taken place since September has been probably to provide clarity, to explain certain decisions of ECOWAS in order to help the citizens make informed decisions on what ECOWAS is doing. This particular session, I will describe as perhaps the best. We have had discussions on democracy and governance. We've had discussions on citizen voices, on security, on development. In fact, as we speak, sessions on trade, regional economic integration, development, and others are going on. Infrastructure development. It is a multidimensional approach. But this particular forum has captured some of the key axes of the deliberations that we've asked our citizens to pronounce themselves on, which is very useful. Second, so far, all our deliberations have been limited to West African citizens. By West African citizens, I mean the remaining 12 members of ECOWAS and the 3 members of the Alliance of Sahelian States. We have invited them and they have participated in many of the meetings that we have, because this is a West African process in order to reposition ECOWAS to meet the challenges that lie ahead. The uniqueness of this gathering here is the fact that it has been continental. That is the first time, which means we've had perspectives from all parts of Africa that will only enrich the debate that is going on about the future of the regional integration in West Africa. And from the discussion that we've had, it is very obvious that the team here could have been retitled Imagining East Africa, Imagining Central Africa, Imagining North Africa, Imagining East Africa, which further proves that the continental unity is the way to go, and that there is so much that unites us than divide us, and we need to concentrate on the points of convergence in our continental integration, process. But for ECOWAS, I think the most important thing is this. There is a saying, when you are in the middle of the ocean drowning, it is not the time to think about swimming practices. It is about saving yourself, getting to out of the water, and then rethinking your priorities. So even while we are thinking about this, there are immediate and real threats that face our region, and we are taking already very practical steps in order to deal with them. The first is the whole issue of terrorism, violent extremism, transnational organized crime in all its forms. So ECOWAS heads of state have decided that we must activate 1650 personnel counter-terrorism force to deal with the danger we are facing right now. Because it is going to be very difficult to deal with all other issues when we see that in some of our member states, up to about 60 to 70% of their territory is out of state control. So this is an agency that we are working on. And the member states have also decided that they are going to pay for the activation of this force. Member states have already pledged troops for it and also capabilities. And, we are just waiting to finalize it by a decision of the heads of state and, authority. That is a very, important, point, here that I think we need to take cognizance of. The others is the very dangerous democratic backsliding that we are observing not only in West Africa but across the continent, as exemplified by what we are reading about the aftermath of the Tanzanian elections and then other places. This is becoming a continental, challenge, and then we need to, deal, with that. So that is the second major challenge that we have, which calls for immediate review of the extant instruments in order to strengthen democratic culture in our, region. And then, of course, linked to all that is what is happening around the world, multipolarity, where Africa, just like during the Cold War, risks being an object of multipolarity rather than a subject of it. And this is what we need to, reverse. And that is the environment in which the regional integration process is unfolding. And the next is the most pervasive public square. I know this is a public square, African public square that we are here, but the most pervasive is the social media platforms that are cutting both ways, at times very dangerously, with misinformation, disinformation, and all that. That is a major issue. And channeling the youth agency also into productive contribution to the regional integration, process is something also that we are thinking about. Civil society, broadly, citizens, have been a part and parcel of ECOWAS's trajectory, since its formation some 50 plus years ago. We have, as was stated during the opening remarks, we have always had civil society as a very credible partner. And if you look at one of the operational documents of ECOWAS, that's the ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework, civil society actually leads the way before even member states, in it, in terms of, trying to put into practice what our protocols demand, of us. So civil society, citizens have always been there. And that is why these discussions involve the entire, spectrum of civil society, from traditional religious leaders, through youth women's organizations, through the typical NGOs that we have in the region, to the private sector, the trade unions, farmers unions, all of them are going to have a say in this public square discussions that we are having. So it is a very broad-based one. And from our experience of the past, that choosing either facilitating the emergence of a civil society group in order to coordinate all citizens' inputs, interface with the decision-making authorities, ECOWAS also has decided that before the next the second quarter of 2026 to operationalize the West African Economic, Social, and Cultural Council, which is going to be the broad framework, an ECOWAS institution at par, with the ECOWAS Parliament, with the ECOWAS Court of Justice and others, that will be the forum for our citizens in their contributions to decision-making and implementation at the, ECOWAS, level. So these are some of the things that we are doing, and we have all been very impressed. ECOWAS has followed very carefully. Copious notes have been taken, and all these, your contribution here, our partners, academics, experts, youth organizations, women's representatives here, all those very critical contributions you made to the debate going on here will be taken on board and will be integrated into the draft pact on the future of regional integration in West Africa, which is going to be the citizen document that the heads of state and authority must adopt. I would like to stress at this point that regional organizations like ECOWAS, ECAS, the Maghreb Union, EAC, SADC, and African Union do not have those multidimensional tools that probably the UN might have, particularly the development angle. None of us has what they call UNDP, United Nations Development Program. Our organizations are supposed to serve as a catalyst as a facilitator, as an enabler, and a force multiplier, in terms of the regional integration process. We have our main slogan, underpinning the Agenda 2050, the vision, 2050, as from an ECOWAS of states to an ECOWAS of peoples. And from what is happening in the region, we realize that the vehicle moving the region towards an ECOWAS of the people has applied brakes at some times. And if we do not take time, it will put the gear, the vehicle into reverse gear. And it is citizens who are going to make sure that we jumpstart that vehicle towards an ECOWAS of the people. And these contributions that have been made here are very critical. That is why we want citizens to take the lead in the member states, because a very objective observation that we can make is that where citizens are dormant, when there is a graveyard stability, where people cannot talk, and others, it is very important almost impossible for organizations like ECOWAS, AU to intervene. We cannot replace the citizens, but we are there to accompany them. And the action has to start there, following the rules that the region has voluntarily set itself on our way to democracy, good governance, and then, others. So this is where we are. And I have to really, add that I have enjoyed these 2 days fully, and I think my colleagues also share the same thing. And for that, I would like to thank our long-term partner, the African Leadership Center, and the King's College, first and foremost, for the imaginative way, together with Amandla Institute and CODESRIA, that the WATHI is also another facilitator of this process, alongside, what is Amandla Institute and the African Leadership Center and the King's College. They have played a major role, and yesterday's on-the-spot opinion polls is unique in this format. And I think it has already given us a snapshot of what we think of the regional integration agenda. So just on behalf of ECOWAS Commission, I would like to thank you all very much for this very productive partnership. And we hope it is not going to end here. We will have a continuation of it. We have talked a lot about the Anglophones, Francophones, and others, and the difficulties listening to each other. But thanks to our magicians, the interpreters, we've been able to listen to each other. And we would like to, also say a very big thank you, for going beyond the line of duty to stay with us even late into the night. Normally, our interpreters don't stay beyond 5 p.m. During the day, but I think they themselves also have enjoyed this experience, and we want to thank them very much for it. And I think the catering has not been bad either. During this meeting, we were able to sample African dishes here. I don't know, maybe I didn't see Injera and the others, but I think at the next meeting we'll make sure that all corners of Africa are represented as far as the culinary dimension is concerned, which is it. But finally, I would want to pay a particular tribute not only to the food soldiers of Amandla and others who have been working with ECOWAS colleagues to make this a possibility, and of course our conference department for being so generous with their support to all this exercise. To all of you I thank you, and on behalf of ECOWAS, we wish you a very, very enjoyable stay here for the rest of the time you'll be here, and very safe travels to your destination. Thank you very much. I didn't do it funny. Okay.
Another round of applause for His Excellency. So thank you very much. I think it's very wonderful 2 days. The buses will be there to convey you to your hotels. Safe travels, bon voyage. Thank you and God bless.
And thank you, sir, directors of program.